Got it. All right. So I want to thank everyone for attending today's web class. Let me just say this, just for the broader audience, my name is Joe Robinson. I've been teaching personal finance since 1995, something I'm very passionate about. I am justice impacted, did a significant amount of time in prison, and that's when the inspiration for personal finance was born. And I've been doing it ever since, something I'm very, like I said, passionate about, especially for people impacted by the criminal justice system. Today, we are focusing on conquering emotional spending because that's a common theme that comes up often, not just in these circles, but just in general, that a lot of people feel that out of boredom, loneliness, stress, trauma, and related issues that they sometimes spend in ways that they not only do not want, but they realize is not helpful to them, right? So that's something that we want to emphasize today. Again, I want to welcome everybody. And for others who are not here, I want to say that we have a community. I think outside the cell community, it's a national community. At some point, it'll be international because unfortunately, we're incarcerated all over the world, especially Black and Brown people. And so again, and that's where my heart lies, right? Based on my own lived experiences. And so that's where we at. And so again, today we're going to talk about conquering emotional spending. As some of you know, I've developed a three-part framework, the SSI method, that's focused on having a spending plan, a savings plan, and an investing plan. And I started it in that order because for many of us, before we can get to saving more or saving at all and investing, we have to get our spending under control. We have to get our spending under control so that way we can allocate money towards the saving bucket and the investing bucket. That's how I think of money now. Meaning I see it as a tool to provide the lifestyle that I want, essentially. I see it as a tool for making more money, right? Meaning money is meant not just to be spent. That is part of it, but it's also meant to be grown, right? You develop wealth, you build wealth. You don't just like have it just like that. And so we definitely want to get our spending under control. So I just wanted to say that the SSI method, like I said, it's a three-part framework that is, and I say this intentionally, that is not the SSI that many people think about, which is focused on the government, supplemental security income. It is definitely needed for people. We need some type of government assistance in some instances. But for me, having spent 25 years of my life in prison, I take a strong position that we are way more capable, many of us, to figure out ways to have money work for us, right? As opposed to relying on the government solely. Now, if we have a disability or we have some other type of hindrance that doesn't allow us to work, then I understand, uh, having government assistance. But for many of us, we can work, we can think, we can create. We are very creative people. And so we want to think about ways to have our money work for us instead of working for money, right? So I just want to start off with that. So now let's get to the topic at hand. What is emotional spending? In short, emotional spending is when we buy things as a way of coping with our feelings, right? That's what it is at its core, right? And some of us do it consciously, right? And it's so strong, the urge to deal with the stress, the loneliness, the trauma is so strong. It feels like we can't do anything. Like we can only spend. That's what it sometimes feels. But anyway, so that's what, in short, what emotional spending is all about. So with that said, I'm going to open it up just briefly because we have a lot to cover, but open it up in terms of your experiences or your understanding of emotional experiences, because it's only when we identify it right? That then we can then rewrite our money scripts, something that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, right? But we first have to identify. We have to say, oh, yeah, wow, I do that. I didn't realize I did this in reaction to this. I was stressed, so I went and bought a jacket, or I went to the movies. I took a Uber when I could have took the train, or whatever the case might be. So with that said, like I said, I'm going to open it up to you guys to briefly share your experiences with emotional experiences, or your understanding of it, or things like that. Anybody can go.
May I? May
Yep,
I start?
sure. Sure.
My battery is a little, so Ibrahim is getting something to connect, and I before it cuts.
Okay, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I feel that because of how I grew up, um
Mm,
survival, I learned not to. I have a different relationship and
mm,
understanding of money.
mhm,
I have noticed, and Ibrahim says that I'm an outlier in this.
mhm,
Even when I am very calculated,
mhm.
very calculated
Okay.
how where my money goes. I know that I can probably spend on things that, but I just have, as an adult, I
Mhm,
want to think not only how do I make money work for me, I
mhm,
guess,
mhm,
is that I also am at a conscious level. At a conscious level, I see
mhm,
the conditions that have been indoctrinated in
mhm,
our society
mhm.
and in our community. Let's think about it. Most of us
Right.
went to prison usually related to something with money.
Yes. Yes.
Usually are and I don't know how to say this, but are uh not normative or maladapted patterns
Right.
started because of something with money or because of a wound that
Mhm.
had to do with some emotional trauma. And to
Yes.
me, it both intersect. So I um I feel that I handle money well.
Mhm.
I don't play with my money. Ibrahim
Right.
knows this. I think that I have even brushed on Ibrahim when it comes to spending.
That's good. That's
I'm like,
good.
and I'm putting Ibrahim here, but I'm like, we're not teenagers. We're not reliving
Right.
this. There's a lot of things that we don't need. And I also don't want to control his money. But to
Right.
me, it's very important. I do it with my friends on
Mhm.
what it is your wants versus your needs.
Right. I appreciate that. That's. I mean, that's why it's always a pleasure. You know what I'm saying? Vibing with you, because that's the level. That's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get everybody on that level. To be honest, right? That's what this is about. Because at the end of the day, it really is about mindset. It's not, you know our the circumstances may influence us, right? But it's our thinking, right? It's the meaning we give to it. So I definitely, I'm going to come back to that, because you cuts on the whole thing of, I'll just highlight some of the few points, and then I'd like to hear from others. But you talked about how you grew up, and the survival mentality, similar to mine, right? And what that made me think of is what they call a scarcity mindset, right? Having a scarcity mindset, because we deprived of a lot of material things growing up. Then she talked about, being mindful of where your money goes, and how Ibrahim was saying that you're outlier, because that is true. A lot of people don't know. They say, man, I had this, I got this bonus, or I got this money, and then I don't know where the money goes. It's like, how do you not know where your money goes, right? You know what I'm saying? It's because you're not paying attention. That's why it's really that simple, because you don't think it's that important. And we want to change that. We want to change it, right? Because again, we want money to serve us. We don't want to serve money or serve other people, right? Who are getting wealthy off of us, right? And then you talked about it on a conscious level, right? So again, a couple of things you mentioned, and then the wants and needs. So we'll come back to some of those points. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I'll weigh in.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the times when I spend money, it's for something that I need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a flashy person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like fine things. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but me, I could just be in a pickup, man, a beat up pickup, and
Right,
jeans and shirt, and still be happy.
right,
But
right.
there is an emotional spending that I do. When
Okay.
I'm upset about something or when I'm anxious, I'll buy food.
Mm. Now, a
I'll
lot of
buy
people do
food.
that. A lot of people do that. That's one of the first go-tos, right? To
Mhm.
feed it, like that, especially sweets,
Yeah,
things like that. I catch myself. I'm like, yeah, why are you buying this? You said you're cutting back on the sweets. Like, what's going on? Yeah.
but there's very few things that I need, except, well, there's certain foods that I need, but other stuff, like when I buy food, I could have just made it inside the house. I got
Hmm.
food in the house, you
Right,
know?
right.
But I'll just send either Albert or I'll just roll to the store and
Hmm.
cook it.
Right.
One of my favorite things is that stuffed shells with beet sauce. You know,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
one of my comfort foods.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
I can't see Anthony, but I know Anthony's laughing.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
but
but that's
that and you know the Haagen Dazs coconut and orange, the coconut
oh
and pineapple ice cream.
oh wow.
Two
That
comfort
sounds
foods.
you
Yeah,
make me want to get one now.
yeah. No, don't do that. But that's my emotional spending for the most part. A lot of times I take money and I invest it.
Mhm.
Like I have a family farm back in Belize. We
Okay.
have a chicken coop that
Mhm.
produces at least 24 to about 30 or 31 eggs a day.
Okay.
Um, we have a bunch of corn that grew. The first phase came out. The second phase is starting to come in.
Mhm.
So Marie has a lot of property.
Okay.
So the thing is, I started about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. I saw where this thing was going, and I
Mhm.
told her, "Yo, you gotta, start growing your own food." So we have like peppers,
Mhm.
fresh corn, uh, cassava,
Mhm.
stuff like
Nice,
that.
nice, 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 nice.
So that's what I invest my money in. That way,
Mhm.
whenever I go there, I'm never hungry. The
Right.
food is fresh and healthy because it
Mm.
doesn't have the pesticides that the stuff over here has.
Right, right. Nice, nice, nice.
And then she
Yeah, we
sells the eggs and everything else that she can't use, she sells. And
mhm.
if she can't use it, the corn gets hard, she uses the corn to feed the chickens.
Right, nice. So yeah, yeah, yeah. It has multiple purposes, right? It's not going to waste. That's the thing. If we think like that with a lot of things, we'll go farther. Our money will go farther if
And
we
then
start thinking like
she took 30 coconut plants off my property to put on her property.
mm,
So there
mm.
she can, and then she's going to get a bunch more coconut trees. So
Okay.
the whole thing is to uh, get a whole bunch of trees so
Mm-hmm.
that she could have it for the coconut water, the coconut milk, and
Mm-hmm.
also for coconut oil.
Nice, nice. Okay, right.
But
Exactly.
if you see, sometimes I laugh at her brother, and I be on the phone like with a whip because he's grinding the corn to make like
Mm.
a
He's not playing. He's he's
all the
he's
corn products.
he's getting everything out of it, right? He's getting
Yeah,
every
amen.
use. He's
But
extracting everything from it.
that's my relationship with money. The only
Okay.
thing, the emotional spending, and I gonna need to check that, man, because Dixon said that if I get down to 225 pounds,
Mhm.
he gonna hit me off lovely.
Okay. All right. All right. So you got work to do. You got to. All right. We got.
Amen. Amen.
All right.
Amen.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, Louis. Now, so I will say this. I think you probably already noticed, but one thing is to, because we're talking about spending, so like you said, when you're upset or anxious, so you know what the trigger is, right? You've identified the trigger when I'm upset or angry, or anxious. I got you, Ibrahim. 1 second. So you want to make sure that you think about when those times occur. So we'll come back to. I want to get Ibrahim because he's driving. So and then I'll come back to you. You want to say something, Ibrahim?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you that it comes from emotional spending, but some things that I see, and even I'm guilty of this, is that when I was on the inside, they controlled my money, even though it was my money, and I couldn't go to the commissary until they told me I can go. And
Mhm.
so now sometimes I feel like if I got the money and I want to buy this, I'm gonna buy it, not because I need it, not because I want it, because it's almost like a form of, it's an emotion, but it's
I know
coming
what you're
from the emotion of like, I'm just gonna do it because I have the ability to do it. And that's
saying.
where I find myself getting in trouble when it comes to money. And that's one of the areas that I need to address.
Right. Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. That really is excellent because a lot of that's natural to feel like it's the same thing, unfortunately, like with our time sometimes. Okay, hold on a second. It's unfortunately sometimes with our time, it's the same way. We didn't control our time, so now we out and we could be reckless with it sometimes, right? Because it's like it's now, how you doing, brother Brian? It's like it's my time. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to do what I want. So I definitely get that. It's the same thing with money. It's like it's, commissaries every 2 weeks, unless you stacked up on some other stuff, you got to wait or you borrow or whatever case may be. And so now it's like, no, I don't have to wait. I have the money in my account, or I have the money, in my pockets. I'm going to buy now. And I'm glad you do identify, recognize, Ibrahim, that is normal. It is normal. So there's nothing to feel bad about, but it's not helpful. You know what I'm saying? It's not helpful because it's taken away from your saving and your spending. Like I said, it's 3 buckets. That's all. So if we focus, so once we identify that trauma, because it comes from trauma, right? That cultural experience is very traumatic, right, on multiple levels. And so now it's like, no, they can't, they, meaning the system, the officers, the staff, they can't tell me what to do because I'm home now, right? So I definitely recognize that. It reminds me, I'll just say this briefly. I went to, this was maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. I went to Bedford Hills, right, to visit a young lady who I mentored until she got out. Now she's home, right? She had a sentence of 25 to life. She ended up doing, I think, like 10 or 11, had a sentence modified. She's doing well in college, very bright and stuff. And so one day I went to visit her, and mind you, I was off parole. I've been off parole since 2019, right? Because I came home 2016, did 3 years, been off parole, 2019, right? So anyway, so I'm visiting her, and an officer says, this is like during the pandemic, right? Like about 2 years into the pandemic. And she asked for some like something from the vending machine. I forgot, but it wasn't the vending machine in the visiting room. It was before you got to the visiting room. So as a civilian or anyone, as you're walking into the visiting room, you see the vending machine. So I said, okay. So I went to go get some stuff, and some officer said, he was like, oh, you can't use this machine. So I said, I can't use this machine. Why not? He said, "Oh no, this is something like it's off limits or something like that." And I said, "I'm a civilian. What are you talking about? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't know me, doesn't know my background, where I'm coming from." I said, and I mean, I really got upset. Right? I didn't make a big deal, but I got upset. I said, "Yo, my money is green like yours. What do you mean? I'm a civilian." Right. And so, but obviously I didn't want to get kicked out of the visiting room. I came up, went all the way up there to visit, the person I was visiting. I went inside, and then I told the officer who was at the bubble, who was at the desk, and I said, is that machine out there off limits? And she was like, nah, who told you that? I said, your colleague here. I mean, because I was like sarcastic. I was upset. So I was like, your colleague here. She said, no, you could use it. And he came in and he was like, oh, I didn't know they could use it. Why wouldn't I be? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense. But I say all that to say, to Ibrahim's point, is that I get the whole, it's an emotional thing when for many years, many of us, we couldn't do as we pleased, right? As we wanted to with our time and with our money, right? And now that we're out, we're like, okay, there's a sense of liberation, a sense of freedom and options and all that. So now, and that's true. So now the thing is to turn it on its head, though, and say, instead of buying, spending on things that you don't really need, that you do have the freedom, but spend it on things that will increase in value, right? That's the thing. You still can do it. You just, it's how you allocate the money. That's the key thing. And I'll say this to you, brother Ibrahim and Lewis, like you mentioned, the Haagen-Dazs ice cream. I may actually get some ice cream later. Now you got me thinking, yeah, right? I need to treat myself every now and then, and that's my point. Every now and then, we do need to treat ourselves, right? But I would say this first: if you are like, this is about shifting our mindset. The money will follow. The money is going to follow the mindset. Wherever the mindset is at, that's where the money goes, right? And that's good or bad, however, whichever way we look at it. And so, in shifting our mindset to one of delayed gratification, to one of a growth mindset, to one of wealth building, of ownership instead of consumerism, right? Then we can we can make sure that we, as they say in personal finance circle, pay ourselves first, right? So we can do things that's going to increase our money and expand our options in life, and then treat ourselves, as opposed to the other way, because we do it backwards a lot of times, right? Unconsciously, right? We spend on things that don't bring any long-term value, may give us some short-term satisfaction, right? We buy a cupcake, we buy this, we go out, whatever, and then we try to use the rest, if there's anything left over, to focus on the saving and the spending. The saving and investing. When what we should do is the reverse. Make sure we're saving and investing first, whatever money we got, and then from that, then we treat ourselves, if that makes sense. Because when you do it that way, and I'm saying it from experience, you are able to treat yourself for much longer, believe it or not, because you put your money to work, right? So yes, I just wanted to share that with you all. But thanks both of y'all for sharing that. So Brian, you want to, because this may have been the first time you're on this call with everyone, so you want to just briefly say hello, introduce yourself, and then I'll talk about the theme, what we're talking about today.
Can I go after he introduced himself?
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Definitely. You there, Brian? Oh, you still? Oh, he's trying to figure out you got it. Okay, got it. You can't hear me? I can hear you. Okay, let's see. Can you hear me, Brian?
Brian,
Looks
you're
like you. Yeah, he's on mute. You gotta take it off mute. Somewhere where you see like a microphone, it should be on the bottom left of the screen or something like that. All right. So while you're doing that, while you're figuring out the mute, take your time, right? Take your time. We're all trying to figure out this technology while you're figuring that out. Anthony, let's hear from Anthony.
Yeah. I want to comment on that. When I was inside, I used to learn how to deal with my monthly statement.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to base a pattern off that, and I would see how much I have for the month, how much I spend, and sometimes I was very displeased how I spend my monthly. The more I got in, the more I became liberal. And when I looked at my monthly statement, in prison, it started to show a pattern with me from my old culture and lifestyle. And I remember when I was selling drugs, how over a 3-month span, I counted up, one night I was in a park and I counted up how much money I'm making every day, how much I was making a week, and how much I was making a month. And in 3 months, I had spent like almost $250,000. Right. And and I couldn't believe that I could have had that much money in my pocket. And I was saying it was just counting the math, how much I was buying, how much I was turning over, how much I was paying workers, how much I was consuming. And I said, and after I did a total, I said, yo, this is crazy.
Right.
And then when I got in, eventually I started doing that with the income that I had. So I started breaking that pattern, and it was sort of difficult. So one of the things that I do now, and I'm doing it right now, right? I'm getting ready to go out in around another hour and a half out of my house, right? And the event is 3 hours. And so I'm making myself a meal now to deter me buying something outside that's going to cost me like $50, me and my wife.
Right.
Right. And so I'm saving. The like savings is like I just open up and I prepared a meal for less than $10. So I'm saving myself like $40. Right. And like if I make a bad meal, I was telling Lou before we got on the call, if I make a bad meal, then I can live with it because I made it. But if I gotta pay for a bad meal, then I'm not happy with that.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and like that's not to say that sometimes I don't do that. Usually once a week I do, buy a meal outside of the house because I just don't feel like cooking it. In my house, if I don't cook, we on Ramadan. We just looking at one another.
Right. You fasting. You fasting.
Yeah. Right. So I have to cook.
Right.
I know Ibrahim is laughing over there.
Right. I know what you said.
So one of the things that I learned too, that when I land my first job, I geared on saving, and I was trying to adopt my same mindset that I had inside. I was looking at how much I was making a day, on how much I could spend a day, and at first it got like sort of like wow, because I was always conscious on how much I make a day. If it was like 150, 200, I was spending up to that limit, and I would say, well, I'm not really hurting nothing. I'm just like breaking even. And I got a little bit left. Right. So I was conscious.
Right.
I don't know if that was emotional spending or maybe a mix of both in intellect.
Yeah.
But then eventually I got into like a thing like just break the habit. Stop spending every day. It's not how much you make in a day that leaves you where your limit is at.
That's right. It's how much you keep.
Right. Just don't feel because you're making that much, you should be impulsive about spending that much a day.
Right. Exactly.
And that's when I started to save.
No, that's excellent. Now I appreciate that. You see, there's a mouthful. Like I said, I'm taking little notes, even though I'm recording this. I'm taking notes so I can respond in time, in real time. And you talked about the monthly statements, the patterns from your old lifestyle. That's understandable as well because you have been operating a certain way, behaviorally and emotionally and psychologically for years, and then you go in. It's not expected that you would just shift automatically, but then, like you said, you start reflecting on how much money you on the outside, how much money you went through, and then those same patterns had resurfaced, and it was playing out, and it wasn't to your your long-term well-being. Because and I emphasize that because that delayed gratification is almost like a muscle. It's like working out. I work out, I go to the gym, I jog several times a week, right? So if you don't get those reps in, so to speak, you're not, getting, it's like, your money fitness, so to speak, right? Your money health, your money well-being. If you're not getting those reps in, then you're going to atrophy. That's what happens, right? Your muscles get weak. You give in to the anxiety, the stress, the old thinking patterns and things like that. So it's something that we have to do. We have to practice on a regular basis, right? It's not about being hard on ourselves. It's about catching. It's about awareness, right? That's what mindful money is about. That's what my company is about. It's about being mindful, being very aware about your money and your money habits, your money stories and scripts and things like that. So it's not like putting anybody on blast, but if we don't check ourselves, then we're going to continue to do the same thing and we're going to continue to get the same results, right? If we want different results, we got to change our thinking. And I learned that before the finance, just in general, when I found myself in prison all those years ago, 32, 33 years ago, when I first was inside and really doing a lot of introspection and thinking about how I got myself there. It was about that awareness and being honest with myself. So another thing you talked about, Anthony, that really resonated with me was the preparing of meals, right? And that you save a lot of money. I'm telling you, I'm lucky to have a wife who cooks when she feels like it. She hasn't been cooking as much these days, but for years while I, worked at my previous job for 7 years, I would bring my lunch to work. right? I bring my lunch. She will prepare them, and sometimes I would like once a week I'd bring like a Trader Joe dish, like one of their like I like Indian food, for example, Thai food, right? So I would bring a dish, just heat it up in the microwave. But most of the time, it was food that I brought from home, and I would have snacks with it, an apple, orange, a little cake, for dessert, like later in the day, and then the main dish. And it was something that it was interesting when I would be in the kitchen area at work. People were commenting on it. Oh, meaning over the years, people got used to it. And meanwhile, most people, right? I worked at a law firm. Most people would go to, and this is in the financial district, so this is near Wall Street. It's expensive down there, right? You get a salad, you're talking $15 for a regular salad, right? So now my wife could make a salad for $2, right? Meaning you get the lettuce, you get the ingredients. We're talking $2, right? I have my dressing, little cups of dressing, the whole thing, right? So now let's just do some quick math, because I used to do this, and I never used to tell my colleagues like to make them feel bad or anything like that. But let's say you have people who drink coffee regularly. I don't drink coffee, for example, right? So let's say they do Starbucks every day, 5 days a week work, right? So that's 20. Let's say if it's, I don't know how much it costs. Let's say $5, right? Maybe more or less, but let's say $5. So that's $25 a week, right? No big deal, right? Even though that money can go towards investing. And let's look at let's say lunch on a conservative side in that area is $20, right? That's being conservative. So let's say $25 a day, right? Times, let's say 5 times a week, that's 125, right? If my math is right. So that means in a month, right? We're talking $600, right? No, let me see. Let's see, 150, 250, $500, right? $500 a month on a lunch and a coffee. That's not including cigarettes for people who smoke cigarettes, stuff like that. It adds up. That's real money. That's, what I'm saying? For some people, that's going towards paying rent, going towards paying a mortgage, right? Could go towards, if you have children, grandchildren, niece, nephews, and you want to put them through college. The term they use is opportunity cost. What that money could be used for, right? Okay, I got you making a frappe, right? Exactly, right? So that's real money, right? That's real money. And we got the key thing is this. So again, it's opportunity cost, right? Opportunity cost in simple terms, you could use it for time or money, right? In other words, the time that we're spending here is not spent somewhere else, right? So we're taking this opportunity, which means we're giving up other opportunities because, as I imagine all of you see, this is an investment. This is an investment. This time is an investment, right? We're not just like kicking it. This is very specific. Just like whether we do stuff in different aspects of the movement, so to speak, we putting the time in because we expect a certain result at some point, right? In this case, we're talking about our finances. We're talking about lifestyle and our families, multi-generational wealth and things like that. But I just wanted to mention the point about the opportunity cost. So when I spend, for example, I'm just giving you another example. And I do spend. I don't, like a lot of you, I'm more disciplined now with my spending than I was many years ago. But when I spend, let's say, on something that I know is not necessarily like I don't need it, for example, I don't do that often. The first thing I do, though, when I contemplate it is, what am I giving up? Like, one is, do I really need it? Why am I doing it? And what's the trade-off? Right? An opportunity cost. Another way to think about it is, what's the trade? What am I giving up in the long term? You know what I'm saying? Oh, it said, Brian, you can't. Oh, you said he can't hear us. All right. Okay. I didn't know that's what was going on. I thought you couldn't. All right. So sorry about that. Let's give me a second. Let's try to get Brian situated. All right. I got you. Hold on. Give me a second. We want to get, let me see. I'm just gonna type this in.
While he does that, I wanted to add about how we have been. It's a miseducation, right?
Yeah.
The indoctrination of consuming,
Mm-hmm.
and within our within our community is
Mhm.
what is it that I did not have for a long time. So now I'm gonna disclose something. For many years, for many years, I people used to give me a lot of clothes.
Mm.
Talking about a lot of clothes that were designer clothes. I'm
Mm.
embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say that I have a pair of sneakers that are very, very expensive that somebody gave me, and I just couldn't. I'm like, what are you doing?
Mm.
Thousands. I was like,
Wow.
why? The person got a lot of money, and she was like, you're my friend, and I was like, I cannot accept that. I cannot.
Oh, wow.
Over $2,000 sneakers, guys. I don't even
Wow.
wear them.
Right. You
So
like they have no use for them. It's like they don't move
it's
you.
like some Gucci, and I tell Ibrahim like, wow, I have these sneakers that and what I have done, because I have like three,
But BB, me
like,
and you wear the same size. Me and you wear the same size. I can fit them.
listen, Anthony, this is a friend of mine that um did a lot of a lot of good work within the movement in New Jersey, but because she was making, I mean, she purchased a home, she used to overspend in clothing that was, I
Right.
don't know how she got it, designers. And since I'm smaller, I was smaller, she used to give me bags and bags of like and
Mm.
stuff that I used to use to work. So I
Anthony,
I collected like three.
Anthony, Che Gavera would roll over in his grave. He saw her closet.
Che Guevara. So Ibrahim used to say, wow, like for a revolutionary, you got a lot of, I mean, I'm putting my things out there, guys, right? So what
Right.
I
You
started
good
to
now?
do,
Yeah.
All
what
right,
I
good.
started to do is that I started thinking I'm from a different I'm from a different consciousness politically. So
Mm-hmm.
what I started to do is that I started to give I gave like 6 bins to a sister that came out. Everything
Nice.
that was a little big, I'm like, I'm not gonna look if it, no. I started giving it away, and I
Mm-hmm.
started reducing how much I had, and I'm gonna tell you why. Not only
Mm-hmm.
because I'm generous or this and that, it's because when you have a lot,
Mm-hmm.
you almost can't see everything that you have, so you wear the same because it's all. I was like, I can. I was like,
That's
and
true. That is
I
so
used
true. I resource the how you say just you know what I'm talking about recycle the same stuff because I got too much like it's too much time to be trying to figure out like oh what am I gonna wear today this nah but what it was like what am I doing here?
and because of that, I don't buy clothes anymore. I don't.
Mhm.
Ibrahim usually don't see me buying clothes at all. And when I
Mhm.
used to do, I usually like to thrift, to go to thrift stores.
Nice,
Um.
nice.
So yeah. So I think that I have changed certain things. Also
Mhm.
with the cooking, I
Mm.
the pandemic. The pandemic taught me how much was in that bank when nobody was coming out. So I was
Mm.
like, wow. So now I just, we go outside to eat because we're foodies,
Mhm.
but I love to cook at home. And
Right.
if he's right, I am the one that I'll be like even shaming him and like, where is your lunch? Get this is healthier than anything, and you
Right,
don't have
exactly.
to be spending. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, excellent, excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Before we get to you, Brian, I just want to say that. So the thing is, right, when it comes to spending, because we're talking about it in real life, everyday terms, the next step is to, like Anthony mentioned, about commissary stuff. We talked about also how how much money he went through prior to incarceration. I can attest to like, going through a lot of money. I'm like, wow. Then when I got locked up, didn't have a lot to show for it, right? Didn't have to pay lawyer and all that stuff because my mindset wasn't there. When you 19, 20, you making $1,000 a day, you think it's gonna last forever. and it doesn't, right? And so, but what I want to say to make sure I want to get this in, as we talk about some of these triggers, like and the things that trigger us to spend a certain way. I want to also talk about how we could put a monetary value, start looking at, like, you hear the term budgeting and we start thinking restrictions, and I don't want to, do all that. That means I'm not going to be able to spend. The object of having a spending plan is not that you spend less per se. The object is that you are aware of how you spend so that you can spend in a way that is in alignment with your real true values and goals. That's what it's about. Because when we're not aware, then the money is going to go all over the place because we're not paying attention. Right? We're not paying attention. Then we say, where did the money go? The money went with your emotions. That's where the money went. The money went with the money scripts. It followed the money script. The money doesn't have any power over us unless we give it that power, right? So we don't have to buy more, as we talked about here. We don't have to buy more food that is unhealthy, for example, or eat out on the right. We don't have to buy more clothes. I don't buy a lot of clothes now. I got 2 closets full of clothes. I'm donating clothes from time to time, right? Somebody else could use it, right? And so, again, if the operative word is that, or words is our long-term goals. What are our short-term goals? What are our long-term goals? The way we allocate our money should be reflective of that. And every now and then we treat ourselves, right? This is not about deprivation. The irony is this: when we get our money under control, we can have more of what we want. Seriously, people don't even realize it. But it's when we don't have a plan, it's scattered. It's scattered. The money is just blowing. It's like, think of a fall day like today. Let's say the wind is blowing. It's like your money just blowing all over and you can't catch it, right? Because you have no plan for it. But when you have a spending plan, then you can say, it's like, you're the director and you're giving instructions. This is how you're going to, this is how I'm going to put this money to work for me. So I just wanted to share that, the opportunity cost, and for us to think long term, because people say, oh, well, tomorrow's not guaranteed. Well, it's not, but let's say it does come, because it is now. Today is yesterday's tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Like this, we're here. It's the present. And so we want to make sure, I want to have as many good tomorrows as possible, as many good todays as possible, right? And money is one of the tools to make that happen. It's not the only thing, but it is one of the tools. So with that said, we got Brian back. So we want to hear from Brian a little bit. I think you kind of got where we're going with this, right? The theme is emotional spending. We talked about some of the triggers, some of the things that make us do that, or something we struggle with, or things like that. So you can introduce yourself for anyone who doesn't know you, and then we'll go from there. And thanks for your patience too. Thanks for your patience.
Hey, how y'all doing? My name is Brian Harley. And I didn't get, I planned to get on earlier. I didn't, I really wanted to hear most of this. But like when I did get on, I didn't have no sound and I couldn't hear
okay,
y'all.
So yeah, okay, gotcha.
So
okay,
I'm glad I did, but I because it tied in with what I was doing. I was going in my portfolio in my nest egg and putting down on some things that I wanted to invest in, my 401k plan, and moving that around differently. Now this is the very first time I did that, and I was I was kind of like lost with that. So I really wanted to chime on in here and ask questions and get to know like what like the I just wanted to be a part of this discussion.
No, I got you. So let me say this, right? So we focusing on spending, right? And we'll dive in. We got another roughly half hour because we do 90 minutes, right? And again, I appreciate everybody being on this call. But I'm going to speak to what you're talking about. So now because you mentioned a 401k, so I just want to jump in that just briefly. So now so I'm going to ask you, it's with your employer, right? Meaning you work for a company, right?
Yes.
So how long have you been with them? I'm just trying to get some quick assessment.
Oh, since I started in March
of this year.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and so you're in the 401k plan. Do you know if they match it? Like a lot of them
Yes.
will match,
Yes.
right? Was it like 3%? Sometimes it's 3, sometimes more. Do you know how much?
I don't know the.
Okay, that's okay.
I know
We can
it's
find
like
out.
I remembered they said they would match it like three or four. I don't know the
Yeah.
particular number though.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Well, we're gonna find that out because one thing I'm gonna say this, and we can talk offline as well. And I will say this, I'm gonna put this out there. I also do one-on-one coaching. I would be remiss if I didn't say that, right? So I do offer I do. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to Bronx with someone, so we can discuss the parameters of our coaching sessions. I'm gonna do 3 sessions with her. It's $500. I'm just putting that out there, right? So we can get like drill down and get concrete stuff, right? This is more, group stuff, but I do, and this is free, but I do paid sessions as well. So I just want to put that out there for anyone on this call or anybody who knows someone who's, interested in that. And I've done it before, so. So I will say briefly with the 401k, I had a Roth 401k, right? So they have 2. I'm gonna do in 5 minutes. I'm just gonna give you a quick run through. Well, let me ask this before I do that. Are you familiar with 401ks? Because if you are, then I don't need to go over it. Are you familiar with how they work, how to maximize them?
Not that. So no.
Okay. So I'll give you a quick run through. So a 401k is actually under the IRS code. Meaning the IRS, like when we were inside, I used to study not just criminal law. When I worked in law libraries, I would be curious. So I've studied business law, real estate, all sorts of stuff. The books were there, so I would study them. So 401k is under the section of the United States Code, just so everybody knows, meaning that it's law, right? So it's not just something that companies offer or anything like that. It's law. It's under 26 United States Code 401. That's why they call it, right? So, but what I'm really getting at is that a 401k is essentially a company sponsored. I think Lewis has got some background noise. Let me see. Is a company sponsored retirement savings plan. Basically, that's what it is, right? So, and there's 2 variations. There's traditional 401k and Roth 401k, right? The difference is this. The main difference is when you'll be taxed. With a traditional 401k, meaning a regular, plain vanilla, as they call it, 401k, then you are taxed in the future. So it's what's called tax deferred, right? So your taxes are put off to another until you withdraw the money. Legally, the way the law reads is that you have to keep the money in there, in that account, until you're 59 and a half. If you're already that age, I don't know. I think you're about my age. I'm 55, right? So,
50.
Yeah. 56. Okay, all right. So we pushing it. I ain't rushing it, but we getting there. I'm like, God damn, But anyway, right? I was just in my 20s a few years ago. It felt like, what the hell happened, right? But anyway, right? So 59 and a half, as long as you keep it in there, no penalties. If you take the money out before for any reason, they do have certain reasons where they don't penalize you. So we can get into that another time. But in short, 59 and a half, if you keep it in there to then there's no penalty. If you take it out before then, it's your money, so you can do it. There's a process, and then you pay taxes because you're taking it out prematurely, and there's a 10% penalty. So your money is going to shrink by making a move like that. So it's intended for the long term, right? So I just wanted to say that, right? Give me 1 second. Okay, give me a second. That's my wife. So anyway, so it's a 401k is basically it's an employer sponsored, meaning companies offer them. So not meaning companies that you work for, as opposed to like a bank or this bank, like other companies like that don't offer those, right? They can't, right? Because the law wasn't set up for that. And every company does not have them. and it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't take advantage of them. That's why the first question I ask is, do they offer, do they give a contribution, like a matching, right? Because that's free money. 3% is 3%. It's more than you're getting in the bank, right? So it is free money. That means the more money you put up and they put in 3% of a certain amount, that money is gonna grow faster. It's gonna grow faster, right? So traditional IRA, basically you set aside a certain percentage or dollar amount that comes out of your check every, let's say every 2 weeks, whatever the pay period is. It'll be automated. So you determine that, not the employer. And that's important because, like in my case, and probably most cases, they will have what they call a default account that they like, the with 401ks, it's usually mutual funds, a list of mutual funds that you choose from, right? And a mutual fund is basically a basket of stocks or bonds of some type of investment. And the way it works is your company outsources the administration of the fund, right? In other words, they go to another company, let's say ADP or something like that, and to work out the details of how to make this thing work, right? So now they'll have a default account. So like in mine, I can't remember, but years ago I saw, because I'm familiar with this and I wasn't like intimidated or anything like that, I looked and I said, okay, all right, it was set up, but I don't want it to be in this account because this particular account is too conservative for me, right? I wanted something that was a little bit more aggressive, right?
That's exactly what I was doing before I got on this call. I was setting it up like in default, like the companies that they chose.
Yeah,
I chose more like they term me as a moderate aggressive.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's kind of where I'm at, because I'm not aggressive because of my age, to be honest. When you're younger, you could take on more risk, right? Meaning because you have more time for your money to fluctuate and for you to rebound, so to speak. If we 55, 60 and you run out of money, that's not a good thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. But I'm also not conservative. Hold on a second. I'm also not conservative either. You know what I'm saying? Because the money is, I understand how money works and how it should be put to work. And so if it's too conservative at this age, then I'm not going to be making any money. It's not going to be working for me, right? And the object is for us. This is my vision, is for justice impacted people all across the world, not only to work for money. It's fine if you want to work for money, right? But to have money work for you. And often money will work harder for you if you know how to allocate it. I gave the example, I think you was on the call, Brian, last week, when I talked about how now the stock market is not, it's not the holy grail. I'm not saying it's going to save the day and all that other stuff, but it is one of many vehicles or options to put your money to work. And I explained how in one day, for example, not yesterday, but last Friday, or whatever, it was recently, in one day, my money being in the stock market went up $1,500. I didn't work for that. It worked for me. That's putting the money to work. And then over the course of a week, it went up 7,000. Now I can't pull the money out because there's penalties, so but it went up 7,000. Now then the next day, or sometime this week, it went down or something, but it goes up and down. But the trend is up. And that's what I mean by having money work for us, because let's keep it real, we're not getting younger. And if we're only spending and we're doing little or no savings, we're in trouble. I'm just keeping it real. We're in trouble because we don't know if we got another 50 years on the planet, so to speak. So how are we going to provide for our lifestyle, whatever that may be, even if it's modest? It still costs money. Things cost money. So we need to put our money work. But anyway, to get back to it, so you got the Roth 401k and the traditional. I chose the Roth by default. The company I work for or used to work for, they put in, the money in a certain type of mutual fund. And then they also, it was in a traditional. Right. So it's not like they did anything against me. They need to if you agree to be a part of the plan, they just have a default setting. They're not going to try to figure out. They're going to say, this is what it is. And then you can change it. So I went to the administrator and said, hey, I want to change this. And I started talking to stuff. And she's like, oh, you know your stuff. A lot of people don't come in there. They just let it be. And people don't even know how much money is going in there. It's like, nah. So I started with 10%, and that's when I was working part-time. I was surprised that they even allowed me as a part-time employee, because usually you got to be full-time to get access to that. So I was part-time, putting in 10% of my little wages. I was, making very little, but I knew the importance of it, and I wanted to get in the habit. That's the key to get started. So I commend you for having, for being part of the 401k plan. Now I'll say this last thing on that, 2 points. One, so with the traditional, you get you're taxed later, it's tax deferred, right? So what that means is from your gross pay, right? You're gonna pay other taxes, state, local, federal. They're gonna get you with the taxes, right? If you have benefits, healthcare, stuff like that, that's gonna come out, and then money is gonna go straight to the 401k without being taxed. It's not gonna be taxed. Now, what happens is, let's say 59 and a half, and then you start withdrawing. When you withdraw it, it's going to be taxed then, whether you're 59, 60, 70, whatever, it's going to be taxed, right? And so it's going to be taxed at your current rate, whatever amount you're making at that time. So let's say you're 60, and let's say you're making less than you are now that you're working, right? That's where a traditional 401k is good, meaning you're making less than you are now. I chose a Roth 401k because I predict, based on my entrepreneurial thinking, right, and wealth building mindset, to be honest, that I will be making more money when I'm 60. So I don't want to be taxed as much. So I chose the Roth 401k because it is the reverse. You get taxed up front. The money is taxed before it goes into that account. And then when I'm 59 and a half, 60, or whatever the case may be, I can have $1 million in there. It's tax-free. It's tax-free, all of it, right? So that's why I chose that. Right now, I have, for example, I switched. I made some moves. I had to do some things, right? But I switched from a Roth 401k because I'm no longer with that employer and I'm now full-time with my business. I went from a Roth 401k and I had the money transferred. I couldn't touch the money. I had it transferred through Fidelity, the broker that I use, and I opened a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA. Now with the IRA, the difference is this. I don't want to get into a whole coaching session, right? But I just want to give you, that's what you came here for. And I want to make sure you got it. Like I said, I do offer coaching sessions. I'm putting that out there for you or anybody else. So with the Roth IRA, individual retirement account, that's what it's called. So now the thing is this: if a person works for a company that does not offer a 401k, then I highly recommend that they open a Roth IRA. It could be traditional or Roth. They have the same two versions like a 401k. The main difference is this. The main difference is 401ks. One thing I do like better about a 401k than a IRA is that you can invest more money, a lot more, right? So for me or you, anybody's 50 and above with an IRA, the most you can invest in 1 year is $8,000. That's the most. Some of them have, I think they have what they call a catch-up thing, phase where you can add in like maybe five more thousand something. And 8,000 sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's not. For me, that's not a lot of money, right? So it's better than nothing, but it's not a lot. With a 401k, I think the limit is like 20, 22, 23,000. Both of them go up every year because they index to inflation. So the federal government will say, set the inflation rates or whatever, right? Not the federal government, actually the Federal Reserve Bank. But when inflation, so it's indexed to inflation. So every year those numbers are going to go up, how much you can invest. And the 401k is about 3 times as much as the IRA. So I like the 401k. I wish the IRA contribution limit was higher, right? Because what that would mean is that I can put more money to work, right? Because right now there's a cap on it. Now, what I like about the IRA, I'm gonna close out with this, and then we'll finish the spending piece. We got 20 minutes, and we'll wrap up, right? With the IRA, what I really like about it is the fact that there are more options in terms of what you can invest in. So with the 401k, it might, depending on who your employer partners with the 401k, it may be, let's say 20. I'm just using, for example, 20 different options. Like you can choose this mutual fund. You can only choose one, right? You can't be in multiple ones. You could only be in one, right? And now you can change it, because I've changed it twice. Once from the default one that they had, and then maybe 6 months or a year later, I changed to another one. And then I stayed with that one. And the one I had, I can't remember, but essentially it was an S&P 500, fund. So it was the top 500 companies. It went by a certain name, but that's what I went with. All right, I see the missus over there. That's what's up. All right, that's make it a family affair. That's what this is about, right? And so, so that's how a 401k works. An IRA is beautiful because you can invest in thousands. You got thousands of options. The IRA is basically like a shell, right? Meaning it's a basket, and then you pick all the different things that you want to be in that basket. So you can have, let's say you do, it's 8,000 as a cap. Let's say you say this year, I'm going to put 2,000 in the S&P 500 index fund. I'm going to put 1,000 in, let's say if you're feeling like me, a little, you're willing to take on some risk, I'm going to invest some in Microsoft or NVIDIA or Apple. So you can have all of those working for you at the same time. That's why primarily my money has been going up, right? It's not just like in a mutual fund, because you get diversification, right? Meaning your money is spread out, you're spreading the risk, which is a plus, but you are losing out on, in my opinion, you're losing out on the potential that some of these individual stocks can make, if you have the stomach for it, and in terms of your risk tolerance. And we could talk about that another time. But so that's how you want to do it. The whole thing about with spending is you want to see it like you're in the driver's seat. That's the mentality you got to have. Like I dictate how my money is going to serve me. That's the bottom line. We got to switch it. Not I'm working and hustling and all this. I did it. We all did. I'm hustling and working for money. It's like, okay, if I have to do that, and then how long am I going to do that? Right? I'm going to do that into my 60s and my 70s and still be hustling, or I'm going to have the money working for me, and then I'm enjoying, because think about it, then I'm enjoying time with my family, my loved ones. That's what we ultimately want, right? To have a good life with the people we love. That's why we do work. That's what the job is about, to make some contribution in the world, obviously, to make some impact. But some people, they not us per se, but people get the degrees, and I'm not knocking that, but because they want to make the big bucks, not necessarily, or their parents say, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor. They don't even enjoy the job, right? They would rather be with their friends or their loved ones. So why not put our money to work so that it can do just that? They can do that. So anyway, but that's a brief overview of the 401k and IRA. I'll close out with this on that point, is you can have both. So it's not either or. I want to say that too. So even though you have the 401k, you could at any time, it's not employer sponsored with the IRA. It's your money. So you can just open up, let's say with Fidelity, Robinhood, whatever platform you want to use, and set it and have them both going. That's what I did. So that's why how my money was able to go up to 6 figures. I had both of them working for me. The employer one was able to grow more because one, it was automated, right? Because every time I got paid, I was paying myself. You see what I'm saying? Right? Every time I was paying the government, because I ain't have a choice, they taking the money out. My money also, and I would look. I'm a numbers guy. I like words too, but I'm a numbers guy. So I would look at my statements, make sure they paying me what they say, what they supposed to pay me every time I got paid. But I would go. It only take 5 minutes. Right? That's what we got to start thinking. It takes 5 minutes. We can't be afraid of the numbers, right? It takes 5 minutes. You look at it. Okay, this is and if there was any questions, I go right to the HR. Hey, I thought, and I wasn't crunching all the numbers, but they should, my thing is that they look like they was, what I'm saying, in the ballpark of where they supposed to. Make sure my hours is there. If there was any huge variation, that's what I mean, then I would go to HR. I'm not going to them bugging them and, for no reason. But if something was off, especially it was under what I expected, then I would go to them. If it was above, I ain't had no questions. Like with a lot of us, right? I ain't gonna ask you where that extra money come from, right? But my point is that, so that's how you want to do it. So I will say this: you want to contribute as much to the 401k as you comfortably can, right? As you comfortably can. So, and you don't want to, yeah, and you can, the good thing about those, any of them, is that you can change the contribution amounts. So you can go up and down. So you can say right now, initially, you might be at 10%, and then you might say, well, my wife and I, we got to make some moves, so I can't contribute that much. I'm gonna go down to 8%. And then it's automated. Or you might say, oh, well, actually, we're doing okay now, and I think we got some other money coming in, so I want to put as much of my money to work as possible. I'm going to go up to 12%. So you can do that anytime. It's no penalty, right? So keep that in mind. Again, you are in control, but I'm telling you, that mindset serves me. And you feel empowered because you are empowered. When the dollar is a paper. How you gonna have a paper? You know what I'm saying? Like control us when you really think about it, right? Or if it's a lot of it now is digital, right? But still, it's like we, as human beings, we have more capacity than other animals to think and reason and all that. So let's apply it so that, like I said, that this money works for us. But anyway, that was just a long overview. We got about 15 minutes because I'm gonna respect the time. And but yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. And if you got questions, send me an email, text. You got my number, stuff like that.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, it's great, man. It's great. I'm just so kind of like I'm uneasy that it took me so long to do this.
Yeah,
And my wife has been encouraging me to get into this, to listen to things, to get to know this about about managing my money and investing and all that. And I've been so slow to get into this.
Yeah, well, you're getting it now. Give yourself credit. No, seriously. And kudos to the wife. Kudos to the wife. No, seriously. Because I've been in it for 30 years. My wife has not. My wife is, she's right, but she's a beast, as we say. She's retired, New York Times, so she's a great writer, thinker, and all of that. And it's only over the last couple of years, literally, since around the pandemic, a few years, that she started investing. Now, so she had, I'm not gonna put all the business out there, but she had, I think her money in some type of mutual fund that was like maybe fixed income. It was very conservative based on her conversation with an insurance person like 30 years ago. So once I asked, this is some years ago, I said, well, how, I'm just curious, how much money is it, is it earning on an annual basis? I think she said something like 1 or 2%. I almost lost my mind. Like literally, because I'm a money person. I was like 1 or 2%. I said, you lost a lot. I wasn't trying to pick on her. And it was a sore thing. She said, I don't want to talk about it. I mean, really, she got like a little, but I was like, the prices of goods and services, or another term they use is inflation, goes up about 1%. That means you're not making no money. You breaking even. You're not making no money. You worked all those years, bust your behind. You ain't make no money. You know what I'm saying? So I don't care if you got $100,000 in it. 5 years from now, $100,000 is not going to buy you what it can buy today, right? Our money always has to outpace inflation at a minimum. If prices of goods is going this amount, you want your money going like this or this, right? That's how I think, right? So it's really that simple when we break it down. So I said, man, you could have paid, and I didn't go on and on because again, she got all sensitive and stuff. But I said, you could have paid off the mortgage, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know. And when I was inside, I didn't want to get all in her business. How much money you got? Where's it? I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Because that's a sensitive topic too. Right? Money is a very sensitive topic, but I that's all I talk about. Money is my second language. It really is. For some people it's Spanish, it's Arabic. For me, it's money. Right? It's English, money. Right? I'm keeping it real. That's it, right? And I see the world in that way, just like how a lawyer sees everything through that prism. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, she eventually, to her credit, got a financial person at New York Life. We have long-term care insurance there, right? And so there's a guy, good guy, and he knows, he's been there for years. He knows it. So he tried to get me on the plane, but I know what I'm doing, so I didn't need it, right? But so she did it, and just to give an example, and I've given this example before, during the pandemic, right? So Right, the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, as we know, that was a tragic time. Some of us lost loved members, loved ones, all that. It was a crazy time, right? The economy shrunk, right? Because no goods and services was moving. Most of the stuff we get is from China. So if nothing's coming over and businesses are shut down, then there's no movement. The money can't grow that way, right? And so it shrank. The economy shrank. And so to stimulate the economy, to get people to spend, the government came up with this idea of having stimulus checks. That's what that was about. They didn't want it to shut down. If it shuts down and nobody's spending for 6 months, you don't have an economy, period. You don't have an economy. So they had to, to stimulate the economy. Now, what that did, though, is that caused inflation. Because what it did is it injected all this extra trillions of dollars, trillions of dollars. Individuals got checks. I got checks. My wife got checks. Businesses got the PPP loans. There was so much money going around. Yeah, I was talking to somebody else about this recently, a young lady, and she was saying, yeah, people in the hood, they was taking trips. They was doing this and that, blah, blah, blah. People was partying, right? Well, there's party. Now, I get it, but I said, unfortunately, I bet you those people don't have, they're broke now. A lot of them are broke now, right? Because that's a scarcity mentality that I had once. Like, oh, I got to live, for now, for the moment. But my point is, during that time, we eventually went to meet with, I forgot his name, but anyway, the financial person. He suggested a couple of options for her to invest in. And I said to her, he knows the stuff, he's licensed and all this other stuff, but before you actually make a move, you and I go over this stuff, right? And look at each of, because it was like 6 different types of mutual funds and all this other stuff. And I said, okay, so I looked at each of the types of investments. I researched them. They have a company called Morningstar. They have a whole bunch of them, but Morningstar, where they list a whole bunch of mutual funds, and you can see, a whole bunch of stuff. They have a whole bunch of data. So we went over that. I said, this is good, but so overall, I approved. I'll just say that, right? I approved. So she went ahead. 2021, the market went down like crazy because we were still, like I said, in the pandemic. But 2022, it went up like that. When I say the market, I'm talking about, let's say, the S&P 500. It went up 30%, 30%. My money was invested. Her money was invested, and a whole bunch of whoever other people, people's money was invested. Your money went up 30%. You're never going to get that from a bank, from a CD, from a high yield savings account. You're never going to get that ever in our lifetime or the next lifetime, right? They just don't give out that type of money. So that is the importance of not being afraid of learning this stuff. It's never too late. Just like how you said, you're just getting into the finance. Most of us who did time are just getting into technology, right? But we getting it, right? You got to look at it like that. We getting it. I came home. I read books about, how to, use the iPhone for dummies. Read it. I'm like, okay, I'll be at least a little bit ahead. Man, I ain't remember none of that stuff when I came home trying to figure out how to do a Metro card. Right, I'm trying to figure out how to swipe properly on the Metro card. So we start where we at. I just wanted to say that. So anyway, so going back again, I hope that's helpful. We'll have more conversations. We'll do some maybe where we just focus on just that.
My wife wants to ask a question.
Yep, sure.
Okay, with the S&P 500 companies, that's like a diverse. When you invest in S&P 500. That's a collaboration of different companies, right?
Yes, it's a basket of companies. So the S&P 500 stands for Standard & Poor's, the name of the company, Standard & Poor's. Those and 500 is the 500 largest companies in America. So even if you have one share, that one share is split into 500 companies, believe it or not, because you're buying the whole basket. So you're spreading your risk. Now, I will say this, unfortunately, it is the real, well, I'll say 2 things. One, over the last 100 years, like if we go back 100 years to 1925, right? We weren't born, but it has averaged, the S&P 500 has averaged about 10% a year. About 10% a year on average, meaning, not every single year. Sometimes it made more, sometimes it made less, but over that period of time, it has averaged 10%. So it is one of, in my opinion, and even wealthy financial people, it is one of the safest investments in the stock market, right? Is one to say, because you're spreading your risk. It's not all in one thing, you know, as opposed to individual stocks where you're taking on more risk, but you can make more money. I'll say this.
I'm sorry. So that was going to be my next question. If you have the S&P 500, would you find it wise, if you can, to also invest in one of those companies separately, like, for example, NVIDIA?
That's what I do. If you feel comfortable, I have, I'm just going to put this out there. I'm not going to put all myself, but I got right now, when I just made a move and I moved a lot of money from my 401k, I emptied it out. I had to pay taxes because I'm not 59 and a half, right? So I paid a big chunk in taxes, 13,000. 13,000. I never paid that much in taxes before, but I know that I'm going to make that money up by having it in the IRA. Just like how I said, in 1 week I made 7,000. That's almost half the money I paid in taxes in 1 week. See what I'm saying? Because my money is really working for me. So to answer your question, if you have the risk tolerance for it, right? Meaning you feel like you can stomach it, you don't need the money right now, you're thinking 5 years out, 10 years out, I would say put some money in a S&P 500. I use Vanguards. There's a whole bunch of them, right?
I have Vanguard through my job.
Okay, actually, Vanguard is the best, in my opinion, because they have the lowest, what they call expense ratio, like how much money they take out of it, right, for doing the administrative stuff. That's what the expense ratio is, right? You want the lowest amount. Vanguard changed the game because they have the lowest amount in the industry, period, right? And they started by this guy, John Bogle, right, who started like 40 years ago. So they have some of the best accounts, right? So I have VOO. That's the ticker symbol I have. That's the Vanguard S&P 500 Index Fund, right? So the index is basically the same thing. It's a basket of funds, right? The ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund, right? So instead of a regular mutual fund that you can only like buy it or sell it like once a day, that is the rule, right? With an ETF, an exchange traded fund, it is just like it sounds. It's a fund that is exchanged, that can be exchanged throughout the day, like a regular stock. I mean, you can buy it now, sell it the next hour. I mean, literally. I don't do that, but you can. So to your question, I have, for example, about I just made a move. I'll put this number out there. I put like $20,000 in an S&P 500 fund. I just recently did that, right? And then the rest, a lot more than that, is spread out over like 10 different stocks: NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all the big joints. They not going there anywhere, and they are the AI giants of the world. They are the AI giants. So when I said, unfortunately, the negative part, I didn't finish that thought. Unfortunately, the top 5 or 7 like tech companies, right? They have, even though, let's say the top 5 or 7, they are all on the S&P 500, obviously, because those are the top 500 companies in the world from different industries with the S&P 500, meaning tech, pharmaceuticals, all of them there's like the top from like 11 different industries, and the top companies in their industry. The tech stocks are so large, this is the unfortunate thing, that they hold more space, so to speak, on the S&P 500. They move the S&P 500 more because it's based on market capitalization, what the company is worth. NVIDIA just went to $5 trillion with a T. Just think, when we was kids, we never even heard of billions, right? We heard of millions. Now they talking about Elon Musk maybe becoming a trillionaire. That, to me, that's like ridiculous money. I mean, that's crazy. I'm not hating, but come on, you got people starving all over the place, and he's talking about $1 trillion. I mean, it's ridiculous. But my point is, these companies are huge. Google, all these, they are now in the $1 trillion bracket. They investing hundreds of. I read the newspapers. I'm on top of it. They're investing hundreds of trillions of dollars into AI, right? And so we got to get ahead of it. We need to learn AI, and we need to invest in AI, because it's not the future; it's the present. It's right here. right? So the last thing I'll say on that is you want to invest in, if you go with the individual stocks, you want to invest in things like Warren Buffett says, one of the wealthiest investors in the world. Invest in things that you understand, right? So don't just go on hype. Don't go on something I say or something like that, right? We understand how Google works. We understand I invest in Apple because I have Apple products, right? We understand how CVS works. We understand how Starbucks works. I'm just using those examples.
Yes.
We understand how Nike works. Just understand the things that you spend your money on. Why not invest in it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they make money off you. You make money off them. Right? You even it out. You're gonna make more money off them because you ain't gonna be spending hundreds of thousands, but you can make hundreds of thousands off them. So that's how I look at it. You know what I'm saying? And just always think long term. But I'm glad that y'all doing it as a couple because it's so important. I'm telling you, it's so important. We need to normalize conversations about money. There's nothing taboo about it. What are we afraid of? A lot of times because we're talking about spending, and like I said, I'm gonna wrap up in a minute. It's because of the trauma that we had, because a lot of us didn't come from money. Most of us didn't come from money, right? So little we get, we sometimes we go to one extreme or the other. We either spend it all like crazy, right? Or we're real tight with it, right? We don't know what to do, right? So it's either one. We need to be in the middle. Spend some and make more so you can spend more, make more so you can spend more. And I say spend more, meaning so you can, for me at this age, at 55 and over the trajectory of my life, it is all about quality experiences. I love to travel. Right. So it's about taking the cruises. It's about doing all these things, with my wife or family members, it's things like that. Right. Those things cost money. All those things cost money. So I'm just keeping it real. I'm not busting my ass until I'm 70, 75, 80, God willing, so that I can enjoy those things and enjoy those experiences with my family. I want them now, right? And we should, that's how we need to be thinking. So with that said, I know we kind of, it all does fit into the spending because the whole purpose of making this money work is so that we can spend on the things we really, really want, right? And that's going to really give us a sense of fulfillment, right? Not quick satisfaction. There's a difference. Right. It's not those, instant gratification days. I'm not saying they all behind us, but we did that growing up. A lot of times that's how we got in trouble with the law. That's quick. We want the quick buck. So now I'm going to reverse now. I'm like, no, I'd rather the slow, steady money. Right. That's working for me. That's the name of the game. So with that said, we're going to wrap up here. I thank all of y'all for showing up. We're going to be doing some version of this, different topics, probably 2 to 3 times a month, right? I'm diving in. I'm making a commitment to this. If y'all have suggestions about different topics, bring them up. Like I said, I've been doing this 30 years. If I don't know, then I'll say I don't know. And as time goes by, I intend to get other people on board, right, to be a part of these sessions from banks, from financial institutions to weigh in and stuff like that. And spread the word about the community. Spread the word. We want to grow the community. At some point, we're going to be doing next year. I plan on doing some summit, right? I got to get some partners in terms of space. I'm going to see if I can get Columbia University, but we're going to be doing a summit so that it's going to be focused on us. So think outside the South Summit, where we have our family members, our friends, of people who are impacted by the criminal justice system to really get this money thing down pat. Because one of the things that I'll close out with this, one of the things that really bothers me is that some of us, because we don't have the information, we struggle when we don't have to. We don't have to, right? When I realized the light bulb went off for me 30 years ago when I was sitting in the cell facing 25 life and I'm in Elmira, and I'm like, that once I started learning this stuff in 94 and then start actually investing. I made my first investment of $300. That was a lot of money back then. And I invested it in a mutual fund from in prison. They let me do it. I didn't know we couldn't do it, right? And then when I went to Green Haven, they said I had to shut it down. Or they're like, oh, you can't do this and all that. But my point is that we need to, once I started realizing like, damn, if I had learned this stuff earlier, I wouldn't have made the poor choices that I made. I just didn't know, right? So once we know, we need to dive in, share with other people, get other people, like I said, on these calls. We'll be doing meetups as well, right? Anthony was gracious to let me last month, to let me use his home, right, in the backyard, and a couple of us got together. And so we'll be doing more of those. They won't always be at my brother Anthony's house. I appreciate his graciousness. He's always been like that with me. And but there'll be different locations where we'll be meeting up in person, and just so we can chat and hang out, trade, stock tips or whatever, that type of stuff, right? Where we have food, music, and all that. So anyway, with that said, really appreciate all of y'all being on this call. And let me stop the recording now. Hold on. Let me take the recording out. All right. With that, I'm going to close out. And let me see. Let me just stop the recording.